quality time to be with us here today. I know that Engineer Jina Ayola is going to be joining us. She's just sent me a message that she's going to be running a bit late. And I really do believe that we're going to have a fantastic session here this morning. But just before I hand over to Mr. Somebody Odeyemi, our chair, I'd just like to give us a little bit of background of what we do in NBBF. The organization was set up about 5 years ago for three main purposes. One, to build a business network amongst Nigerian entrepreneurs as well as professionals based in the United Kingdom. So we do believe that we have numbers, we have the expertise, we have the resource base to create a sub-economy that is substantially significant in the context of overall UK economy. So we can be major players out here like other ethnic groups. The key factor is the ability for us to work together in terms of our business relationships. And with that, ultimately, we can, without a doubt, create the necessary impact. Second aspect is our nation builders sector. Now, what is happening this morning falls within that particular remit, where we have different groups, sector groups. We have the health group, we have the education, we have technology that is attending to this program this morning, infrastructure, and the list goes on. So from time to time, we organize programs like this, and it's more focused on how we can bring about value towards our homeland, Nigeria. And that really is what the nation builders sectors are about. And the third aspect is the bilateral. Bilateral is engaging with our host country, the United Kingdom, with a view of partnering towards business relationship in Nigeria. So in a nutshell, that is really what the Nigerian British Business Forum is about. I'm not going to go further in any or discuss this morning because I know that you're all raring and raring to go. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Sam Odeyemi, who will take over from now. And I wish everyone on the platform an inspiring morning. Thank you very much for your audience, and God bless.
Thank you, Prince Afolabi Anju, for that welcome note. Truly inspiring message. And I truly commend all your efforts for setting up this NBBF in the first place. For your insights and visionary leadership, I truly commend. It's a platform that aims to unite both Nigerians in the diaspora and Nigerians in the UK and the world at large. Now, the topic today, my name is Samuel Odeyemi. I'm the chairperson for the ICT Nigerian British Business Forum. I'm your moderator today. And the topic today is technology, a prerequisite for economic development in Nigeria. Now, without a doubt, in the last few years, we've noticed that even if everyone was in denial, that technology is actually plays a very important role in our day-to-day lives. It affects everything that we do. So to get the best out of this webinar, I will encourage everyone to please turn on your camera if possible. One, so you can learn. Secondly, you can interact, because we now live in a digital and physically connected world. When you meet someone virtually, you instantly recognize them the next time you see them in person. So it's important that you're engaged. And more importantly, if you turn on your cameras, you will learn because you'll be less distracted. Without a doubt, technology, when implemented, can affect the bottom line of any business in terms of increase in revenue, cost reduction, operational efficiencies. And this is applicable to non-profit government organizations as well. IT cuts across all sectors. In fact, in the last few years, the foreign direct investment in Nigeria was over 40 billion, and it represents over about 14% of the GDP That's the contribution to IT, as you would see in the next few slides. So there is something called the Sustainable Development Goals. And these are goals that have been set by United Nations with 169 targets on economic, social, and environmental dimensions to improve people's lives and protect the planet for future generations, covering a range of sustainable development issues. I don't know if you've actually seen any of this. This diagram is quite common. It's been floating around for quite some time. So this is your SDG 2030. And according to United Nations, what they're planning for 2030 for the world, it's a laudable one. No poverty, no hunger, good education, access to good health, water supplies, gender equality, life on land, and overall climate changes. But what is interesting is that UN actually recognizes that ICT, information technology, plays a very crucial role in economic development. Now, if you look at all the nations that have developed substantially in the last few years, you would notice that a lot of them have ICT at the backbone of their society. Investing in ICT is the best way for developing countries to get out of our crisis. ICT can accelerate the development sustainable goals, without a doubt. And if anyone was in doubt, in the last few years, when we had COVID, a lot of businesses that took IT for granted, I'm sure we know what happened. They suffered. And a lot of businesses actually went under. But the businesses that had IT as their cornerstone, as their foundation, actually did very well. Even some of them increasing or doubling their revenues overnight. Now, the SDG cuts across different countries. The fact is, we do have SDG in Nigeria and most countries that aligns with the United Nations SDG. So information technology has become a strong catalytic force for sustainable economic growth across nations, creating jobs and wealth, as well as inclusive development that would improve socio-economic status of all nations. Now with Nigeria, actually, we're sitting on a gold mine, and our gold mine is not necessarily our crude oil. Our gold mine is actually in our people. Nigeria is actually a marketer's dream. Nigeria is very important to Africa and actually the world at large. And not just that, Nigeria is actually important to the Black race. We believe if Nigeria comes into its own, the Black race will come into its own. So without a doubt, our population is our strength. And according to the World Economic Outlook, October 2020, our GDP per capita is about $2,000. Now, ICT has contributed 14% of our GDP. I mean, the Nigerian population is split between Islam and Christianity, and we have a youth of 44%. Now, that also is an advantage because really, when you look at the population and you have an aging population as opposed to a youthful population, Nigeria actually has an advantage here because you know that the future is IT, and this youth, whatever we do today, whatever foundation we lay today, the youth will benefit and they will probably they will definitely take it to the next level. Oftentimes people say, well, I live in the United Kingdom, I live in the US, I couldn't be bothered with Nigeria. But the truth of the matter is it's about time that we're bothered. If anything, we saw what happened in the last few days where Nigeria was banned for one reason or the other. So that means that if we don't build our country, one person from somewhere could actually ban you from entering their own country. In as much as it's comfortable for us to live in the UK or live in the US, at the moment. We never know what tomorrow might bring. Some yesteryears, if they said Brexit was possible, someone would say no. These are all Europeans. So it's actually important that we begin to build. Ours. And what's interesting as well, the last few years, in the last 15 to 20 years, Nigerians have actually contributed a lot to the UK economy. There's hardly anywhere that you go within the United Kingdom. If you look at all the large multinational organizations, Shell, BP, the banking, Barclays Bank, the government circles, you would find in Nigeria. Now, Nigerians have actually built, and I can say without a doubt, that we've actually built the IT infrastructure of this country. So because if you look at the foreigners that have actually contributed a lot to this country, you have the Indians, you have the next ethnic minority you look at is Nigerians. So if we built this country and we've left Nigeria alone, and then for one reason or the other, we can't get into the country that we built, other Nigerians can't come into the country that we built. I'm sure you understand that it's time to start building ours. And apart from that, Nigeria, I believe the next CEOs or the CIOs or CTOs of large multinational organizations will definitely come from Nigeria. As we can see, the Indians they're playing in this space, and there's no reason why Nigerians cannot play in that space. Now, this is our outlook in 2050. The target population is 410. That is not a joke. Like I said, it's a marketer's dream. So we're 190 million now. We're heading up to be 410 million. Some people might see this as a disadvantage, but we see it as I see it as an advantage. So because our strength is in our numbers, human capital, human resources, and Nigerians are one of the most highly educated people around the world, even in the US, the UK at large. Now, if you're in doubt about the ICT progress in Nigeria, this is, I don't know if anyone has seen this. This is very revealing. Nigeria in 2021 was number one. You know, there's a lot of stories coming out of Nigeria, some not so good and some good. But most times the media portrays an image about Nigeria that it's very, of course, without a doubt, we know some of these stories are true. But at the same time, it can actually cloud people's judgment about what's truly happening in the country. We've heard of great companies coming out of Nigeria, startup companies, Andela, Flutterwave, Paystack, so many. But what's interesting, in the whole of Africa, Nigeria is still number one in terms of the ability to raise finance. In terms of the ability to raise finance, Nigeria raised 1.3 billion, that's billion with a B, in 2021. And this is a place where people would say, oh, well, don't do business in Nigeria because Nigeria is not a favorable ground. But if the foreigners can see that Nigeria, what is it that they're saying that we can't see? So I think it's best we begin to see what they're saying as well. Nigeria is actually a gold mine for people that want to, for people that really get it. So that's, I believe strongly in Nigeria. I know it's the way forward for the continent. So we're going to start with the first round of webinar. So before I do that, I would like to acknowledge our sponsors that's made this truly possible: Ciba Technologies and Medilives. Medilives by Dr. Sonny Awonsi. I'm not sure if he's here today. If he's here, please turn on your camera and please just say a few words. Is he around?
I don't think he's around.
Okay. So we'll move on. Okay. Now, it's going to be an interesting one today. And like I said, it's best you turn your cameras on, get involved, get engaged. So we know that technology will continue to play a crucial role in the world going forward, right? ICT is multidisciplinary. It cuts across all sectors. We have an amazing line of speakers today. They'll be sharing great insights into the use of technology and how it applies to several business sectors. This promises to be an enlightening and educative session. So, in the order of the webinar today, we have Ms. Teju Ajani. She's MD, Apple Nigeria. Mr. Jerry Ejikeme, CEO of Suchtal. Ms. Abiola Obile, CEO, Synergy Datasoft Technologies. Engineer Ade Okuyebo, CEO, Integrase Security Solutions. And Engineer Gina Ayola, CEO, WavePalm Technology Solutions. All attendees, you'll be given an opportunity for questions. After each speaker, you can unmute yourself, raise the questions you need to do, or send it by chat. But all questions must be brief and straight to the point. And if you're sending it by chat, please put the speaker's name at that point. Questions that cannot be answered will be forwarded on your behalf by the British Business Forum. So I'd like to invite the first speaker of the day, Ms. Teju Ajani, the Managing Director, Apple Nigeria Limited, on the topic, positioning Nigeria as a technology-based economy, the key requirements. Teju is the Managing Director. She's a seasoned business leader with over 20 years of technology leadership, delivered to Fortune 100 technology companies across North America, Europe, and Sub-Saharan Africa. A personable leader with trusted relationship across organizations with strong bias for action. She is passionate about technology and its potential as economic equalizer and ability to open up opportunities for people. Ms. Teju is also the person to hold that position. She's the first person to hold that position in Nigeria. I believe this is a great achievement. More so, she's a woman playing in a male-dominated industry. This is a great achievement, and she's one that needs to be celebrated. Please welcome Ms. Teju Ajani, the MD, the Managing Director of Apple Nigeria, to the floor. Thank you, Ms. Teju. If you just...
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you. Thank you for that amazing introduction. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Thank you to the Nigerian British Business Forum for the invite. And thank you to everyone who is attending today and spending their time and sharing their Saturday morning with us. The pleasure is mine to be here, and I look forward to an engaging session with everyone. Before I start, I have to say that I'm putting out a disclaimer. The views shared here today are mine and not representative of my employer's perspective. We always have to do that. But having said that, when I was asked to present today or to share on this topic about positioning Nigeria as a technology-based economy and thinking through the key requirements, I think some of the things Sam said earlier and some of the things that we will hear the other speakers talk about will fall along the same lines. As Sam had already mentioned this morning, Nigeria has the advantage of a large population. I mean, there are reports everywhere, flying everywhere that talk about the size of the Nigerian population and, the demographic split in terms of the age of the population. We have, headlines like 50% of the Nigerian population is below the age of 30. Think about the possibilities that hold for employment, think about the possibilities for the future. Those are possibilities, and they're great possibilities and things that we should definitely, look into and explore. However, the questions that we need to be asking when reviewing such statistics are quite important. For example, how productive is that population now, and how productive could they be in the future as time goes on and things evolve? For an economy to develop and to evolve, innovation is key. Innovation does not happen in a vacuum. You walk the streets of Nigeria and you talk to youth and you talk to people, and they are bursting with ideas and amazing energy to try to achieve things. However, ideas need the right environment and support to evolve into meaningful solutions. In order to create this environment, technological, organizational, and institutional elements have to come together. There's just no two ways about it. Of all those, education is a key component of any technology-based anything in the world, much less an economy. For example, as a technologist, people on this call will remember and know that once learning stops, evolution stops. And once evolution stops, obsolescence sets in. In Nigeria today, as an economy, or Nigeria as an economy with roughly about 62% literacy rate, this continues to be an area for development, which, if not addressed, will make everything we talk about today redundant and dead on arrival. Let's continue to keep this in mind as we discuss moving forward today. According to reports shared by the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigerian ICT sector contribution to GDP rose to 17.92 in Q2 2021 from Q1. While this is an achievement that is worth celebrating, I think more important is the trend that we've seen recently, which is the focus on diversification from the economy's dependence on the oil and gas industry. This is commendable and it needs to continue. At the same time, though, care needs to be taken to build diversification into the ICT strategy as well. ICT, information and communications technology. Today, for example, in Nigeria, we will notice that the primary driver of growth remains the telecoms industry. But that's not the only industry, and that's not the only place we should be paying attention today. In order to position Nigeria as a technology-based economy, capital, labor, technology, and infrastructure assets need to be invested in to create the broader base needed for a tech-based economy to survive. To foster such an environment, there needs to be several components and several things. The first of which is the opportunity to explore and learn, AKA a research base. A research base that doesn't exist just for its own sake, but that exists with a deep understanding of existing concerns in the economy that it seeks to address, as well as globally, but primarily in the economy that it seeks to address and seeks to enable. An understanding of current solutions, those existing concerns and current solutions. And then based on those two components, that research base generates new knowledge. That's the first thing that's needed for such an to exist. The second component is that as that new knowledge grows, the desire to share that new knowledge will grow and to share with a broader audience, which then leads to two parallel components, of which the first is a way to transfer that knowledge to a broader audience and make sure that it's not just a transfer of knowledge, but it's a transfer of ability as well and capability. The second component, as with anything, where there's knowledge and there's new knowledge and there's exciting discoveries, there will also be entrepreneurial efforts that will emerge from that. And those naturally come with new ideas and discovery. And there needs to be an environment in which entrepreneurial efforts are supported, and not just supported, but nurtured to grow. If we look at the world and we look across the world today, we see that there seems to be almost like a new wave in entrepreneurial efforts. It's just the areas where those efforts are focused that vary from the past. In terms of what's going on in Nigeria today, we've seen, as Sam said, a lot of investment coming from, in terms of foreign domestic investment. We've seen a lot of growth in terms of ideas, in terms of areas where their solutions are being offered. But please remember what I said earlier about education, because we'll have to come back to that soon. The third component of fostering a technology-based economy is an influx of risk capital. And when I say risk capital, this is capital that investors understand that when they input into a business or an entrepreneurial venture, there is a risk of that capital not coming back in the way it was invested, or not even coming back with a return, or not coming back at all. Like, that is something that needs to be very, very clear for a lot of people, because I think that is there's still a hesitation in terms of, and naturally so, in terms of, well, if I put my money into this, will I get it back? Again, statistics show that out of every 100 startups, only about 10 in a successful batch succeed. In most cases, it's 1. So let's just let that sit for a little bit and think about that, because it means that there is a cost that comes to innovation, and it's not just going to be borne by the entrepreneurs or the government or the private sector, but jointly. But that needs to exist. And last but not least, there needs to be a technologically adept workforce to bring the innovation to life. Again, going back to education and going back to the literacy rate in Nigeria today being roughly 62%. We have youth that are educated. We have youth that are savvy. We have youth that are enabling and growing. And we have, across the industries, people that are trying to make their mark and growing. But these all need support. They need support in order to learn. They need support in order to grow. They need support in order to innovate. I've just put down, some components of an environment where ideas can grow and thrive and innovation come to life. But we need to be very, very clear that, again, these achievements need an underlying fundamental component of ensuring that there is the education going on to enable the workforce. One of the biggest challenges today is, and if we look at Nigeria compared to places like India or China, is the fact that we do not have a workforce that is technologically savvy en masse. We have a few key players here and there, but the mass needs to grow, because that mass then brings the energy and the support that the Nigerian economy needs to not only proffer solutions for its own challenges, but also address challenges on the global stage. The government of Nigeria, for example, has adopted a strategy outlining 8 key pillars for the acceleration of the Nigerian economy. And it's interesting to note that along that list, that includes, for example, developmental regulation, of which we've seen some, digital literacy and skills. But again, when you're talking about digital literacy and skills, what is the Nigerian starting point? And where are we today compared to the rest of the world? Where are we today in having that digital literacy and skills focus addressing the issues that Nigeria faces today? One of the other components of the pillars is a solid infrastructure. The Nigerian government, as you can see, has made some investments in infrastructure, but obviously much more needs to be done. Service infrastructure. We have service infrastructure that's growing and that maybe has accelerated just a little bit because of the COVID pandemic and the lockdown that happened globally. But we see that that service infrastructure, again, needs to continue to grow. There's still gaps and spaces and opportunities for that to happen. Another key component is the digital services development and promotion. This is key. And when you ask youth and you talk to people today on the streets, when they think digital, most people think, oh, internet, or they think social media. They think, now I can connect to, or they think commerce, e-commerce, for example. But digital services are so much more, right? Soft infrastructure is another component that is necessary. A digital society and emerging technologies. How do we create a digital society when a strong, high percentage of Nigerians are not even connected today, right? And then last but not the least, the focus on indigenous content development and adoption. I usually, when I think about indigenous content, I smile because, again, Nigerians have this affinity for humor that, sometimes comes because of the challenging environment that it is. And so whenever you say indigenous content, people think, oh, there's so many creators out there creating funny content and comedy. That's not just all we need. We need representation on the global stage. We need, today, if we look up, for example, if you do an internet search for a business professional, the color of skin that comes up usually does not reflect what I see on my screen right now. It's a very different environment. The feedback is that when we are not represented, we don't exist. And so when it comes to local content and indigenous content development, again, there's a whole range and plethora of things and areas that could be explored. With the resulting 8 pillars, like I mentioned, from the government of Nigeria, private efforts are also needed across all the key component areas. And while some, again, can be seen from the past investments over the past decade, today we have a negative trend of almost 50% decline year over year from 2020 in FDI in Nigeria, representing the lowest levels in over a decade. This is something that needs to be observed, addressed, and reversed. Investments need to be made in targeted sectors that boost competitiveness on a global scale. And I'll take just one area, for example, artificial intelligence. It continues to be a trend, not just for 2022, but also for the foreseeable future. And today, already, it is the norm in more developed parts of the world. It's just one field that represents some of the angles that we need to take a look at within the Nigerian economy, and with the aim of applying it to our persistent issues, right? As well as, again, encouraging and developing that workforce that creates a significant percentage of employable labor in that field. It's just an example. I'm just picking on artificial intelligence, for example. Advances in material science and engineering also need to be invested in. Again, not just deployed within Nigeria, but beyond borders. And in particular, the focus on all these areas is to create a value economy for which Nigeria can gain development and trading partners that allow for a cyclical process of exchange. Research capacity needs to be expanded. There are entities that can do it. There are universities. We could have joint public-private research labs, some of which again exist, but we need so much more. Private entity centers of excellence also exist, but we need more. There needs to be additional support for growing these entrepreneurial skills and capabilities and fostering startup community success. While these efforts that translate new knowledge into applicable products and services need to be supported. Startup funding not only needs to be continued on an accelerated scale, it also needs to be diversified. If you talk to anybody today and they think startup in Nigeria, most people think fintech. There's so many other areas that we need to look at. For example, addressing waste, addressing pollution, addressing, transportation, there's so many other areas that we need to be reviewing and exploring and actually investing in on an accelerated scale so that the country itself does not get left behind and also has enough to exchange on the global stage. And while startups, again, need that support, what that enables them to do is give room for ideas to be explored without the pressure or the need for immediate returns. To support all this, support for STEM and arts fields training and education continues to be imperative. We need all this to come together as a foundation for Nigeria to succeed as a technology-based economy. Thank you for inviting me today. My name is Teju, and that is what I have to share for now.
Wow, Teju, thank you so much for that insightful talk and presentation. Now, you know, the first thing is when you see a woman sitting where you're sitting from a vantage position that you're sitting on, managing director of Apple, the first thing you check is what's the background? You know, normally you're curious because one is a woman, it's a male-dominated area. But now from what you've shared today, I can see why you're sitting there. You're very knowledgeable, you're very insightful with some of the information you shared here today. And to be honest, I've also gained from your talks today, because at first I believed that the contribution of ICT, from the last time I checked, I thought it was 14%, but I've just realized now from talking to you, from what you said, is actually 17%. That is a lot. And that's not to be taken lightly. So that's the first thing I observed. And I also observed one of the things that you said initially when we were talking about startups. And the truth of the matter is when people talk about startups, people are really thinking of fintech. You know, they're thinking of just IT in the financial world and things like that. Now, but I like the way you said it, and what's the insight you shared is not just about fintech. There's transport, there's waste, there's housing. There are different areas in which one could actually be thinking of startup that can actually attract foreign direct investments. So thank you for that. I've got a question for you before I open it to the floor. Just a quick one. There is definitely a digital divide in the country. So a lot of the things that we've said, even the startups that we talked about, and even this contribution to GDP, which now I know is 17%. Thanks to you for that. There is obviously digital divide when we think of Lagos. Lagos seems to be good, obviously commercial nerve center of Nigeria. There's Abuja, there's Port Harcourt, and there's certain areas. But you find that now the digital divide is between cities, rural areas, the young and old. How do we as a nation reach out? Or I mean, I'm not saying you have all the answers, but what do you think we can actually do to get to the rural areas so that we can bring them up in line with what's going on in the cities? Because as you well know, those in the cities that are attracting all these investments from the venture capitalists, those kind of people actually exist in the rural areas as well. We have intellectual people. We have people that are so brilliant in those areas, but they're not noticed, they're unheard of. They don't even have the opportunity to be able to present or showcase their skills and expertise. How do we solve this digital divide? Or what do you think the government or the people should be doing better to get these people out of the rural area so that we can bring them in line with what's going on in Lagos and Abuja? And even Lagos and Abuja, we've not even scratched the surface. So you can imagine the rest of the country. There's so many people on that side of the country. Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Sam. It's a really tough one because the conversations go such as, oh, I went to Nigeria, and I say to people, no, you went to Lagos, or you went to Abuja, or you went to Port Harcourt, right? Yeah. And those cities are not the country. Yes. The one thing I have observed lately, and I think is a trend that needs to continue, is that there are development groups from each region, and in most cases, state by state, right? Development groups that are joint private-public initiatives that focus on development within each city or each state. A lot of them are focused on STEM in terms of enabling STEM. However, one of the things they do, which I sometimes have a challenge with, is the focus is on let's open a center, let's build a center. Before you build a center for somebody to walk to, if, for example, I'm going to just pick a place at random. If I'm in Abakaliki, just because I say I'm in Abakaliki does not mean that if there's a development center somewhere, I can get to it. there's still challenges, right? I might still have to face transportation. I might still have to face whatever challenges there are. There needs to be an enablement. You see, this technology that we're using and this thing that we call the mobile phone is, first of all, has been the game changer for Nigeria, not just Nigeria, Africa. Africa, we're a mobile first continent, right? And the reason for that is not because we prefer the mobile, it's because that's the closest and the simplest and the, in most cases, most affordable way for us to stay connected.
Of course.
If there were an initiative, for example, that was supported to say, let's get more mobile devices into rural areas at affordable costs, and make sure that then that is accompanied by education initiatives that can go out. Because again, another thing that's happened is the unequal education that happens across the country, right? I'm sitting in Lagos, I'm sitting in Abuja, I'm sitting in Port Harcourt, and I have access to education and people come in and out and innovate and mind share and thought leadership. I'm sitting in the village somewhere and I'm struggling to find a book to teach me about electronics or to teach me about computers or to teach me about, or not just beyond that, also teach me about those technologies, but how they apply to my situation. We cannot bring everybody out of the rural areas, and we should not strive for that. Our focus should be enabling people where they are, and there are so many other ways we can do that, in addition to enabling them with technology, enabling them with some education, and enabling them with clarity and understanding of how solutions can apply to their own situations.
Fantastic. That's the best answer I've gotten so far when I try to think about how do you reach these rural communities. Thank you very much for that insight, and thank you very much for your time. I don't know if anyone's on the floor that wants to, there's an opportunity to ask your questions to Ms. Teju. If not, you can send it later and then we'll collate all the responses and send it back to you. But if you have any questions, let us know. Raise your hands up. And is that Mr. J? Did you raise your hands up? Do you want?
Yes, I did. Okay, thanks, Teju, for that brief introduction. The question I have is, it's often touted the partnership between academia and industry, but I found out that it's hardly been done, or there's actually no one, championing such initiatives. Are you within Apple, working closely with any of the universities to set up research labs? And I know, because if one person starts, then a lot of people follow. So is that something you're doing?
Mm-hmm. So that is something that is in the works. It's on the books. It is not in existence yet, but it is on the books. And also from my past life at another employer, there are initiatives that already exist today that make it such that there are private-public initiatives that exist. Again, do they need to happen more at scale? 100%. But there are the beginnings, right? And I think it just takes a concerted effort, almost similar to what we're doing here today, to say, for example, the British Council or the American Business Council, or whatever other government that comes in to say, companies that are based in these areas need to have a focused initiative. I tell people, when you come to Nigeria, you don't come for the short term. And when you come to Nigeria, you don't just come and do business as usual. You come needing to invest, needing to support growth that will pay off for your benefit in the near future, right? So to answer your question directly, there are thoughts around it. It's in the works, but it's not existent yet for my current employer. But I do know that across the region with other technology companies, some already exist, and there's some in the works as well.
Thanks.
Great stuff. Thank you. In the interest of time, further questions we'll give everyone the opportunity for other questions at the end of it. So let's move on to the next speaker of the day. is Mr. Jerry Ejikeme, CEO, Suchtal Limited. And he's going to be talking to us today about digitalization at the heart of Nigerian economy. Jerry is a serial entrepreneur, the CEO and founder of Suchtal and Nomi World. Suchtal Group, backed by the New York Stock Exchange communication business, is a leading global fintech platform specializing in the distribution of digital products and services with a focus on Africa. The business has a strong footprint, serving major banks in 20 plus countries, as well as corporate clients globally. Jerry's passion for improving the quality of people's lives through enabling access to technology, digital products and services has led him to supporting a number of strategic initiatives across Africa. I mean, one thing that really strikes me about Jerry was it's spoken on a number of occasions at the NBBF. This time around, I said, okay, well, let me do a research on Suchtal to see what they're doing. And what amazes me is the network. In my mind, I was thinking, how was he able to connect with all these partners, with all the banks, in a short period of time? So, like I said, we have up-and-coming entrepreneurs, fast, doing great things, even people that are not yet known, doing great things in different areas. So Jerry Ejikeme is one of such people, and it cuts across not just the UK, in fact, really playing very well in the African continent, eventually a Pan-Africanist, I will call him. So please help me welcome Jerry Ejikeme to the platform to give his talk. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Sam?
Yes, we can, yes.
Very good. Yeah, good morning, Sam. Thank you very much for that introduction, generous introduction, which we hope to live up to in the future. And to Mr. Falabiandu and the NBBF for hosting this forum. I'm going to share some slides so that you don't have to keep looking at my face, so we can make it a bit more interactive. And so I hope to share my screen. Excellent. Can you see the screen? I'm going to put it in slide mode.
Yep.
Okay, great. And with the wonders of technology, we'll put it in slide mode. Excellent. So let me hide the thumbnail. Right, so this morning I'm going to share on digitalization at the heart of the Nigerian economy. I'm going to give a quick background, then look at the opportunities around digitalization, and then Suchtal, my company, and the role we're playing at the moment. Right, so we've just heard the previous speaker who spoke so well, who spoke about mobile phones. And I'm going to use that as the background and the start of digitalization of the Nigerian economy, which I think can be traced to the era of GSM. So in about 2001, Econet and MTN launched GSM services in Nigeria, closely followed by Globacom. Now, the licenses were for a 5-year period under different spectrums, specific targets set by the operator NCC. And one of those targets, they were required to do 100,000 subscribers in the first year, 1.5 million by year 5, covering across the whole nation. And this was a significant risk to these operators. Nobody knew what would happen, whether there would be adoption. But I think NCC did a great job in creating the licenses, and the goal of NCC was to secure efficient mobile network industry in the background of inefficient public telephone systems from NITEL at that period. It is astonishing to note that in 20 years, 2001, we're now in 2021, The country has moved from 400,000 Nitel lines, and my numbers are pretty reliable, to 190 million mobile subscribers covering 90% of the population. I think the Nigerian population, we can all agree, is gone over 200 million. So to have 90% tele-density of mobile phone penetration is astonishing, because what you're really saying is, apart from the babies, everybody has a phone. Nigeria has today by far the largest mobile phone penetration in Africa. And this is the very bedrock and foundation for the growth of the Nigerian economy. Now, let's look at the opportunity. And in looking at the opportunity, let's look at this word digitalization. So it's the word, I'm separating the word from the word digitization. So when we're saying digitization, defined Oxford Cambridge Dictionary, is a process of changing digital forms that can be easily read and processed by a computer. That's not what we're talking about. I've deliberately used the word digitalization, which is a broader connotation and meaning, which refers to the transformation of cultural, social, business practices through the application of digital systems and technology. Simply put, in the Nigerian context, as we heard from the last speaker, we're really talking about mobile phone handsets, mobile phone technologies, network rails that are used to deliver goods and services and social welfare systems. So that is the digitalization opportunity we have in Nigeria today. Some areas to focus on, which are key cornerstones and pillars of any economy: agriculture, medicine, and education. Now, if we look at the agri-tech or the agriculture industry in Nigeria, we get the same depressing statistics from the UN of 65% poverty ratio, 70% more food needed, 1 in 9 people are hungry. And let me use this juncture to make this point. There is so much made of the potential of a young growing population. And Sam put up some really startling statistics that showing Nigeria moving from 200 million to 400 million in 2050. There is a challenge to this, that if we're not careful, that opportunity becomes a huge liability to not just the nation, but to the entire world. If you do not put that workforce in, or that population into work, or if that population cannot feed itself, then you have a big, big problem on your hands. You either slow the population or you have hundreds of millions of people that you can't feed. This is why agriculture is one of the pillars, and I believe the government are taking it that way, of the Nigerian economy that needs to be revitalized and revamped. It's the fastest way to put people in work. And I believe that from the numbers that have been put out, it's the fastest way to unlock, or the greatest way to unlock funds in the economy. There is pent up $4.8 trillion in the global agricultural sector. In Nigeria, it's also vast sums. This can only really be realized through the digitalization. Remember what we termed digitalization, the digitalization of the value chain system in Nigeria today. Some of the challenges that are facing the agricultural ecosystem include productivity losses. So you have a situation where farmers do not have the best practice and information on when to sow, when to reap, what the right seeds are, what the right conditions and climate is. A second factor of challenges in the agricultural ecosystem in Nigeria is the supply chain. we all know the infrastructural deficits in the country. So due to poor logistics, poor infrastructure, farmers produce, some of their produce is lying in waste in storage, cannot get to the market on time, and there are supply chain challenges all throughout. You have financial inclusion as a big challenge to the farmers. Today in Nigeria, farming is seen as for poor people. So how do you get the youthful population excited about farming away from, or to diversify the youthful attention from music, from films, from fintech into farming? And because there's, as I said, I'll show you some steps in the next slide. There's huge finances to be unlocked in farming. So we need to look at how farmers are paid real time, how they're connected to the regional markets, to the local markets, to the even right into the global markets. What products, their demands for products and produce that Nigeria has the right soil and environment to meet real time. There are young people today who are leaving fintech and other more, what word shall I use, sexy industries to go into farming, and are quickly becoming very wealthy through their entrepreneurial deeds. Some people are going to Jos to do potatoes and to do frozen foods. A lot of young people that are moving in that sector. Now, the digitalization of that value chain is the key to unlocking the wealth in the farming industry, in the agriculture industry. So all the way down the supply chain, if you look at that diagram below, from agrochemicals, from the raw material supplies to the equipment supplies, all the way down the supply chain, each of those junctions is a huge industry opportunity for private sector investment to create and unlock a lot of wealth and funds in the Nigerian economy. It's just that it's fragmented, it's not together, and that's where digitalization takes place. Suchtal has been fortunate recently to work with Microsoft on their chatbot. And what this is Microsoft has answered a lot of these challenges and questions on an African scale by allowing the brightest minds with apps and with information. So there's a lot of people around the world who have worked on projects such as knowing the right time to sow, the weather conditions, the best seeds that thrive in the best environments, the global supply chain, unlocking the finances available for sub-Saharan Africa. And that has all been put in a chatbot that could be made available down the supply chain all the way to the farmer and to the consumer. The main problem, so again, we said the bedrock of this digitalization is that everybody has a mobile phone. Everybody has a mobile phone. The main problem that they face is connectivity. Whilst we take broadband for granted in the West, in Nigeria, I mean, if you run out of data, that's it. You cannot. So no matter how good the chatbot is and all the information, you can't link. That's where we in Suchtal have come to bridge that gap, and I'll talk more of that later. We look in the area of telemedicine, and we see similar statistics that have negative connotations. So you have Africa bears 25% of the global disease burden, 2% of the world doctors. I mean, we've seen today that they're blaming Nigeria and Africa on the Omicron virus and all this. And the ability and the infrastructure for Africa, Nigeria to create its own laboratories and its own medicine is limited. We all know the challenges, so I'm not going to go there. So there's even a brain drain of doctors. However, with all these issues, there's come the emergence of telemedicine. telemedicine is where on a mobile phone, the person in the village can have access to local, rural, regional, and even international doctors for diagnosis and prognosis. We have come together, Suchtal's come together to be a one-stop shop for connectivity, because again, you have the same narrative playing out. They have the mobile phones, but the last mile connectivity, do they have the data? Are they able to connect so that the line doesn't go down between the doctor abroad and the diagnosis with mama back home? So that's what we've come to bridge that gap. And like Sam said, by the grace of God, we've done this across 450 networks in 150 countries. It's just something that we did. It wasn't instant. It was over 14 years. So once again, the digitalization of telemedicine, or telemedicine, the digitalization of healthcare, is one of the huge opportunities to grow the economy. Finally, you talk about education, and I couldn't agree more. If you look at the Keynesian model for economic growth, so any economists out there, we normally hear from the Keynesian theory, pump money into an economy, send that money or for infrastructure so that you create a workforce, so the workforce begins to be employed, so that they then become spenders, and that's how you revitalize an economy. The problem with that is a Western theory, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. And we have a lot of African leaders who just want to adopt that model. The problem you have is you do not have an educated workforce. So you almost have to pump more money into educating your workforce. Today in Nigeria, the 2021 budget is literally below 6% of the budget has been allocated to education. That's the lowest it's been in nearly in over 10 years. 6% allocated, and of that 6%, 80% of that 6% is on paying recurrent expenditures, salaries. It's not on investment on infrastructure and into the facilities. So you have this infrastructural deficit and gaps. Education should be where the money is pumped into to get a workforce that becomes digitally and technology savvy, because that is the only way Nigeria bridges the gap. However, in spite of government, in spite of the challenges, there are a number of brilliant apps. And of course, we know through COVID, the world has become a place where it's online learning. There are a number of brilliant apps that are coming out, both indigenous apps and all that, to train the children on a phone, on a mobile phone, so etc., and or on a tablet. Again, we've come in to look at how we can help with the connectivity of that. Finally, let me just explain more about Suchtal. So how does Suchtal support the above sectors in the digitalization of the Nigerian economy? Over the last 14 years, we've as I said, we've connected networks across Africa with airtime and data, connected through partner banks to deliver through channels, so that people can keep their handsets on. Secondly, we've connected wholesale data, and we've looked at the apps coming in. How can we whitelist these apps so that people can have access to it? So the app manufacturers, the Microsofts, the Apples, they end up taking the burden of the connectivity so people can have access. We've established SMS platforms so that the two-step authentication notifications that they need, we provide it. And then finally, there's the big thing that we're working on is aggregation and creation of digital vouchers and tokens. Someone asked the question, Sam, you asked the question, how can we unlock the local rural talent to play in the global digital space. What we've looked to do in Suchtal, if you look on the slide below, we've gone beyond airtime data and all this, and we're now creating digital vouchers so that somebody who has a produce, who creates a local ingenious service can tokenize it. We can tokenize it and put it on the web, through our channels and infrastructure, so it can be accessed and purchased from a PayPoint store in the UK, from a Tesco store in the UK. Today we have over 10,000 digital products. We do over 1.5 million transactions a day, 60 million end users, 70,000 retail outlets worldwide, Tesco's, UK Post Office, etc. Over 50 banks in 20 countries. And we were recently acquired majority stake by IDT Corporation, and a NASDAQ listed company that allows us to do all that. But let me end by saying we're very excited that through digitalization, the gap in the infrastructural deficits, which will be very hard to close between Nigeria and the rest of the world, through digitalization, there can be an equal playing field, and there can be the ability to access the global markets and kickstart and grow the Nigerian economy. And that's what we've positioned today as digitalization at the very heart of growing the Nigerian economy. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Wow, Jerry, that was an insightful presentation. Obviously, when I went to your website, I didn't even think about the agri side of the business and the telemedicine that you just touched on. But what's actually interesting is that those areas are very important for any sustainable development. If there's food and there's health, those two things are extremely important. And of course, a very highly educated workforce. Without a doubt, you're playing in three sectors that are very important for the economy. Because after all, when people are they're well fed, there's less crime in the society. Now, that's all well and good. I do like the agricultural tech side of it. The question I've got for you is one on the entrepreneurial side, right? I've seen what you're doing. In fact, I've even gotten more insight into what you're doing. I think you're doing great. I believe you're doing really great stuff. And to be honest, we need more people like you. Imagine if we had 1,000 people in Nigeria thinking the way you're thinking, doing what you're doing, empowering other people with digitalization, the country will definitely change. So here's the question for you, right? And there's quite a number of us that would feel comfortable just staying in the UK. It's comfortable staying in the UK and doing what we're doing. And we don't want to bother ourselves with Africa because of the challenges. And there are challenges in Africa, without a doubt. The question for you is that, how do we encourage more entrepreneurs to start thinking the way you're thinking, to start doing things, or maybe start something in Africa? And with the beauty of technology right now, anyway, you can still do something without actually physically being in Nigeria. We know that. So can you give us some insights of how to become that entrepreneur that a lot of people would like to be? Because people want to do stuff back in Nigeria. Of course, the challenges. So if you tell us what can be done, or maybe some of the challenges that you faced, I think that would help people with entrepreneurial mindsets.
Thank you very much, Sam. That's a very big question. I'll try, in the interest of time, just try and answer it as shortly as possible. And let me tell you this personal situation. So recently I had the great privilege of two of my sons graduated this year from UK universities. You allow me to boast, both with first class honors degrees. Yes, big gratitude and glory to God. But one of them came down to do an internship with KPMG in Nigeria. Can I tell you an interesting thing? Because one of the discussions we had is, look, you're in a UK environment where there's COVID, there's a recession, young people coming out into the workforce are competing against people who have been retrenched. And then they're competing against, if you don't mind me saying, indigenous people who perhaps they've had more connections and leverage into the workforce. So I said to my son, you have a Nigerian passport, have a look at Nigeria. Now, the most interesting thing that I found was he met up with people from his university, white people, white young children who were also doing internships in Nigeria, right? And you're not going to get on a flight to Nigeria without seeing all sorts of nationalities heading in there. And yet our indigenous people are abroad running down the country. And it's one of the things that we want to bridge and create and say, mate, you've got it completely wrong. The problems in Nigeria are opportunities to bring solutions. You can't bring solution without making money. So you sit, and that was the MTN model. When they went in, they were told Nigeria was a wild west. Nigeria was a disaster. Nothing could thrive in Nigeria. They took the chance. Today, MTN's numbers are staggering. MTN is a multi-billion institution with probably 40% coming from Nigeria. Yeah, so you have to shut down the narrative. We need to speak better of our country. The problems there are opportunities, in my view, to bring solutions. Thank you, Sam.
Wow, that's quite inspiring one from you and your sons. Congrats once again. I'm just going to share a slide just to buttress some of the points that you've highlighted. Just a quick one. Just hold on. Share this. Okay, can you see my screen? Now, just to support what you just said, Jerry, this slide was one of the things that I did mention earlier on, that when I saw these figures myself, I was surprised. I was taken aback because most times what we hear about Nigeria is the doom and gloom stories. Now I'm thinking, if it was all that bad in Nigeria, why is Nigeria number one in terms of the startup in 2021? This year alone was 1.3 billion with a B. So there is something that we Nigerians abroad are not seeing that other nations are actually seeing. So I support what you said. So that's this supports your responses, that there is opportunities even in the midst of the doom and gloom. So thanks for that response. So I'll stop sharing. One final question before you go. And if anyone has any other questions, please, you can raise your hands. And I think Mrs. Ronke Adiagbo has a question. But before that, I'll say one thing. Now that you're playing in various sectors, okay, you've got the agri sector that you're playing in, you have the telemedicine, and you've got the educational sector that you're playing. Of those three sectors, I know they're all equally important. Which one do you think would have a better impact on our youth going forward? Because you did say something about the agric, that agric doesn't really, because when people think of agriculture, they think it's for the poor people. But really and truly, we know that's not the case. Some of the most wealthy people in the US are farm owners. So which of those three sectors do you think is very, very important for what we're trying to do here?
So Sam, just to also point out, no, we're facilitating, we're acting as facilitators in those sectors. There are great people, even on this forum, MediLives, Mobi Health, they're great people doing great things in these areas. We're facilitating with the connectivity. But to answer your question, without a shadow of doubt, agriculture is the bedrock of how to grow the Nigerian economy. As I said, I mean, Nigeria is moving, so you have to feed this 200 million to 400 million people, right? So that's your maths right there. How to feed them, and then the supply chain logistic channel that goes with that. At every junction, you can make tons of money. And digitalization of those things means you don't really have to be wearing boots and be in some state where you expose yourself to being harmed. There's so much that is being done, and young people are tapping into it, and we need to push that narrative more so that even young people from the UK, from abroad, go tap into how to feed a nation of 200 million people. If you make $1 a day, you're a millionaire. That's Nigeria is a game changer with any solution you bring. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Yeah, agriculture without a doubt, and it's one area we as technologists, as IT people, that's probably an area that you probably might not even think of naturally, and even the youth. So it's a good thing that people can begin to think in that direction, and that narrative, it'll be quite important that people begin to understand that food is one of the basic necessities of life. So if you play in that space, then obviously you're doing two things. You're feeding a nation, but at the same time, you will be rewarded handsomely for it. Ms. Ronke Adiago, a quick one. I think your hands are raised. If you got a question, you can unmute yourself. Turn on your camera if possible, and Ms. Ronke Adiago. If not, because in the interest of time, we move on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, but we can't see you. It'd be nice to see you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm afraid you won't be able to see me because I'm currently in quarantine. So you'll have to forgive me. I just want to commend NBBF for putting this together. And I just want to thank Jerry for a wonderful presentation, which I really enjoyed listening to. Particularly, I was very interested in the educational slide. Without a doubt, the Nigerian education sector is behind the curve digitally. There's a huge digital divide and huge digital deficit in the education sector. We already know we have about 10.5 million children out of school. If by magic, those 10.5 million children actually go to school, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the classrooms, we don't have the teachers to get them in. So this is just a wishful thinking. If we find a way to get those 10.5 million children into school, how can we use technology? How can we leverage on technology to make sure they can access education, even though the infrastructure is behind? And are you as an organization, what are you doing with regards to your corporate social responsibility to help use IT to develop education in Nigeria? Now, before you answer that question, there's a bit of a good news. Next year's budget, it increased from 6% to 7.9%, but we are not there yet. We hope to get to double digits, but it's 7.9 for next year. So that's a bit of good news.
Just to answer very, very quickly, interest of time, thank you for that question. We take this sector very, very seriously as an organization. We've been partnering with churches, Elevation Church to name drop, who are working with, and one of the initiatives we started this year, it's not just the children, the teachers in some of those primary schools are neglected. They end up using their money to help the children access data, pay all sorts of things, and the teachers are neglected. We saw an initiative where we top up the teachers. Also, we give free data top up to the teachers, and we're just growing that initiative for the work they do, so they have access. They have phones, they have laptops or iPads, etc. And so even if some of the children don't, and then you can expand that. There's a lot of initiatives coming from different bodies around the world to get handsets and tablets into the hands of the children. What we do as a business to make sure that it can stay on through the access of data. But I use this medium to say private sectors, but most especially churches, religious organizations, mosques, have to do more to support the local economy and the local teachers in bringing up these children. Thank you very much for that question.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Okay, in the interest of time, so let's move on. The next speaker I would like to call upon is Ms. Abiola Obileye. She's the CEO of Synergize Datasoft Technology. She'll be speaking on a topic, medium to long-term impact of IT as a compulsory and key component of academic education in Nigeria. Ms. Abiola Obileye is a graduate of Ogun State University. She obtained a BA in English Literature. She holds MSc in Information Systems Development from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Abiola is the CEO. With our strategic team, they provide customized IT solutions on business transformation and re-engineering for business within diverse industries. She also provided IT consultancy services within Fortune 500, such as Anderson Global Investors, Bank of England, Accenture, Deloitte UK, British Telecoms, and amongst other brands. One thing that I would like to say about Biola as well, it's the power of networking. In fact, what I do at the NBBF, I can attribute it to Biola as well. She encouraged me to join the NBBF. I know oftentimes you say, oh, well, Nigerian British business, what are they doing anyway? I can't be bothered, you know. But I'm glad I joined. And in that time that I've joined, I've networked with quite a number of people. I've met a lot of people in the process. So I can attribute that to Abiola. And, you know, so the power of networking, we can't even underestimate it. And forums like this, we shouldn't even take for granted. The forum is a circle of trust. Because I know within the NBBF, everyone is held to a particular level of standard. So what that actually tells me is that if I was looking for a solicitor, I was looking for an engineer, or I would look within the forum first because of that circle of trust. And one thing that we also need to bear in mind is that if we want to or decide to do business in Nigeria, it's better we go as a group oftentimes. And one of the reasons why we have problems is simply because we go as an individual. So I'll say thank you to Abiola once again, because I wasn't interested in the NBBF, but I'm glad I joined. So I'll welcome Abiola Obileye to take the stage and present our topic. Thank you, Abiola.
All right, thank you so much, Bode. Thank you. And I always say to God with the glory, you know, there's always somebody that is going to do something, but at the end of the day, all the glory goes to God. And thank you so much for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to be part of this amazing vision. And I'm so glad I am connected. I've been there from inception. I'm really glad. I go way back with Pastor Andrew. He's an amazing visionary, so creative and so dynamic, so resilient and so dogged. I just doff my hat to him, it's just every single second there's something that is coming up with, and amazing things as well. So thank you so much, Pastor Andu. Thank you, Bode, for that amazing and generous introduction. Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge our sponsor for today, Dr. Sunny Medilives. Thank you so much for just putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and backing up this amazing conference. I would like also to acknowledge my co-speakers, Ms. Teju Ajani. Thank you. That was so insightful. Jerry, thank you so much. Extremely informative. So far, very value loaded. I hope everybody's getting value from this. Engineer Adeokuwe, I'm looking forward to your session as well, and my good friend, Engineer Gina Ayola. So I really hope that you get something out of this session. And of course, thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly and just go through what we have in store today. And I already have my slide. Okay. So I hope you can all see my slide. Can you please give me a thumbs up?
Yep.
Right, fantastic. Okay. So basically, my topic today is actually very, very simple. I'm just going to go back. Just give me a minute. It's just the wonders of technology is moved on. Literally, just give me a minute. And you kind of start seeing my slides, what I have there. So my topic is very simple, actually. It's definitely an important topic. Every single topic is important. This is equally important. Because I'll be sharing about the medium to long-term impact of IT, which obviously we all know as information technology, as a compulsory and key component of academic education in our beloved country, Nigeria. Right, so, and of course, we all know we're here on behalf of NBBF. So I just put a pictorial image of those lovely boys. I mean, I just happened to find a picture of boys. I mean, obviously girls are included as well, just what I found. I wanted it to be in the minority picture. Sometimes it's really hard to find pictures with, children of, anyway, I won't go there. But basically, if you look at that there, it's just the connectivity, just that image right there that I have. This our central IT, we've heard about IT a bit, so, I mean, a lot rather. So just look at what technology can do for us, particularly in having gone through a global pandemic. It's basically heightened and highlighted the importance of technology in our everyday lives, and of course, I'm focusing on education. So I'm one of those people, I really love definitions, and I just never take anything for granted, because sometimes we have all these things lying around, but what exactly is education? Just a quick, I mean, we all know in general, but I'm just going to be specific. So education in a nutshell is a process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, morals, beliefs, habits, and personal development. I really love that definition, because it's not just focusing on learning in the academic sense, it's a wholesome way. It's talking about the totality of every single person. Because when you acquire knowledge, you get skills. When you acquire skills, it forms you get values. When you acquire values, it's part of your morals, your beliefs, your habits, and your personal development. So I'm emphasizing this to show that education is the bedrock. It is so important for our everyday lives, and particularly for our youth, because they are the future. Without the future generation, our nation is doomed. Without a future generation that is knowledgeable, that has good moral systems, that has good beliefs, that has an amazing mindset, and is constantly in personal development, the country is doomed. That is just the bottom line, regardless of everything else that we have. So education is also the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university, because I'm focusing on academics today. Educational methods include teaching, training, storytelling, discussion, and directed research. And of course, education frequently takes place under the guidance of educators. However, learners can educate themselves as well, particularly in this day of technology. So I've got this here. Again, I love images. It says education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world, right? So I'm a technologist. I've been into technology for almost 30 years now. But I always say that technology in itself is absolutely useless. It might sound shocking, but that is the truth. Because if you put technology there, it does nothing except you apply it. It's the application of technology that makes it so wonderful, right? So I'm going to align technology with education. So education obviously is one of the most important factors for the economic and social development of a society. It is also the main component of the construction of human capital. It is very difficult for a country to accomplish a successful economic progress if it does not invest sufficiently and judiciously in education. Very difficult. Therefore, investment in education is seen as the vital part of a country's economic development. I'm building up, I'm going somewhere. Please stay with me. So educational investments must be treated as being extremely important in order to ensure the welfare and prosperity of the society. Unfortunately, this idea falls short in most underdeveloped countries, Nigeria being no exception. Very sad indeed. And the statistics actually prove that. The importance of education in a country's economic development and growth must be stated and asserted overtly and unambiguously. It is very critical. Okay, I'll move on. So why is education so important, I dare ask? Education obviously is the key that unlocks the door for the development of any nation. Again, I'm reiterating that. It is the instrument that facilitates political, economic, social, and technological development of a country. For education to play its role on the transformation of a nation, it needs to be adequately and effectively planned, because a faulty educational planning can jeopardize a country's development for decades. Therefore, I dare say, the importance of adequate facilities to aid the delivery of academic education cannot be overemphasized, right? I can see where I'm building up to. There is an alignment. So now we talk about information technology. That is the buzzword now. We're all excited about information technology. I love technology. I love it. I'm so grateful that I developed a career in technology. It's an exciting industry. It is broad, it is diverse, it is dynamic, it is innovative. And I could go on and on and on about technology. Absolutely fantastic. So let's bring an alignment between information technology and education. So technology is the most significant criterion of development and growth in today's world, and education is a means for getting to know and achieving the new technology. Changing the educational system in the first place for a society whose objective is to advance on the basis of knowledge and technology. To do this, the country needs to employ educational technology. That is planned designing, implementation, and evaluation of fundamental and practical studies. The underlying fact is that we need technology to harness the delivery of education. Okay, now let's move on. So technology is playing an increasing role in education. As technology advances, it is used to benefit students of all ages in the learning process. Now, In the current age that we live in, technology has become an important component. We all know that, as a matter of fact, you can't even do anything without technology now. Even the mobile device that we carry around, the mobile phone, it is no longer just a phone, it's actually a device. So we literally carry around a small computer on our phones because we use it for so many things. And a lot of us are lost without this phone. We're completely lost. So every day there is some new gadget or software that makes lives easier and improves on the technology and software that already exists. Making lives easier is not, however, the only role that technology plays in our lives. Technology is used in the classroom, helps students to absorb the material. For example, since some people are visual learners, a lot of educators have learned this, that there are diverse ways of imparting knowledge, of delivering whatever you want to, you're delivering in the class. Like there's so many, I guess when we were growing up, maybe there was a standard way of teaching, but research and development has shown that because everybody is different, there's so many ways that people learn. And the best way is to employ all these different ways to be able to enable those people to absorb as much as possible. So we have visual learners. So projection screens linked to computers allow students to see their notes instead of simply listening to a teacher deliver a lecture. So you have students that if you're just delivering a lecture, there are no visuals, you lose them, they get distracted. So one key area that technology helps, which is a very, very minor thing, but that makes a major difference, is just have a projector in the classroom. Just have some images and you capture a larger audience within your students. So that's one major area that technology helps, and I'll keep going. Software can be used to supplement class curriculum. Jerry mentioned mobile apps, so many ways of delivering, in the class now, online, across the globe, so many ways. Technology helps us with that. So I'm going to just link it up to how well we're doing in Nigeria to employ all these things that are available to us. So the programs provide study questions, activities, and even tests and quizzes for a class that can help students to continue learning outside the classroom. So the education is not, the learning process is not just limited to the classroom, it's beyond that. So technology allows us to do that. So another thing is technology has become part of many curriculums, even outside of computer and technology classes. Students use computers to create presentations and use the internet to research topics for papers and essays. You can see where I'm going with this, how vast technology is and how it helps us in our line of education. Students also learn the technology available to them in computer and tech classes, which ensures that after graduation, because that is the end goal, when they go to school and learn, they get degrees, but the end goal is for them to be able to be relevant when they come to the workforce. So after graduation, they'll be able to use the technology in a work setting, which may put them ahead of someone who didn't have access to a particular technology or software in their own school setting. So what do I mean by this? I just want to pick on this a little bit. Think about it. All our children, they are called technology children. That's what they're used to. That is basically their bread and butter. They can't do anything without technology. We live in the UK, we take it for granted. It's just so standard. But what about children in underdeveloped countries? What about children in Nigeria? How on earth will they be able to compete on a global stage if they haven't had access to these devices? If they haven't been exposed to these devices, how do they compete? And we know that the world now is a global village. So it is so important for the government to do something, make sure every child in Nigeria, either in the city, in the urban area, in the rural area, at one level or the other, are exposed to these devices that aid their education. Very, very important. As technology advances, Students have better access to educational opportunities like the ones I mentioned. And when something new and better is revealed, that's another good thing. We have Teju Ajani that obviously manages Apple in Nigeria. So a lot of companies do this, that when there's something new, the old technology becomes even more affordable. So like for schools that may be challenged in terms of their finances, they're able to deposit these things with them. We have companies that give away laptops, away desktops, a lot of things because they've moved on. So rather than dispose of these devices that could be useful, they just give it to the schools to be able to help the students. So that all the technology becomes more affordable, allowing it to be used in educational settings, even when the schools are on a tight budget. And this is where networking comes in, because even the schools should network with technology companies to make sure that they have access to all these devices that they might throw away, they might dispose of. But if you link with them, then they know that, okay, we can actually use this as a conduit and start to give all these devices and all the other things, but maybe they develop mobile apps. A lot of companies have their social, corporate social responsibility. So it's just about the schools, the school proprietaresses, the headmasters, the administrators, and all these educators to network with technology companies and to obviously kind of lobby the government to be able to make sure that they get the right devices to teach their students, to prepare them for, to be able to to be big players on a global stage. You don't have the days where you can just have, just the blackboard. It's not gonna work. Every single student must be exposed to one level of technology or the other, so it's part and parcel of them. Technology has also advanced to help children even before they've started school. That's what I alluded to earlier. Educational video games and systems for young children helps to prepare for school. And in some cases, it actually gives them a head start on education. In fact, in most cases, I dare say. So now I want to be specific. I'm going to be rounding up soon. Nigeria, as we know, is one of the most densely populated countries in Africa, with approximately 212 million people. And it's also the country with the largest population in Africa and the 7th largest population in the world. We are huge. We are humongous, actually. Most of our population is a young population with about 42.54% between the ages of 0 and 14. Can you see that? 1 in every 5 of the world's out-of-school children is in Nigeria. That is really sad. It really saddens me when I look at these statistics, and that's why I've worked with a couple of charities just to see how we can bridge this gap. What can we do about this crisis on our hands? And even though the primary education is officially free and compulsory, about 10.5 million of the country's children aged 5 to 14 years are not in school. Only 61% of 6 to 11-year-olds regularly attend primary school, and only 35.6% of children aged 36 to 59 months receive early childhood education. Very sad indeed. So you can see this is even going back to the stats about, let's even talk about, we're talking about children what about the ones that are not in school? Can you see that we really have issues? God help us. So I'm rounding up soon. I'm almost done with my slides. Education remains the engine room for the growth and development of any nation, including our country, Nigeria. And one thing I'm pleased to say that some charities have risen to the start. So my friend, my good friend here, Mrs. Adiagbo, she's running IA Foundation. They're doing amazing things. And I know even through COVID, they gave out a lot of devices. They really supported many schools, as many as they could afford to, and reach out to help them. I work with Bright Futures for African Children that Pastor Agu and Pastor Shola Iruku run. I've actually been to their village in Amokwete. They're setting up a computer school where we're kitting up the entire school with computers and, taking people there to actually learn, because we just feel like when you do that, you're affecting the entire village, the entire city. And of course, from there, you'll find that you break the chain of poverty, because obviously somebody gets a breakthrough, they become very so knowledgeable, they become so vast, and they can in turn have an impact or make a positive difference to others in the society. So I applaud charities like that. I'm sure there are so many others. Jerry spoke about what they're doing. And it's just a high time that we just looked inward and said, what can we do? Because the government can't do everything. What can we do as individuals? What can we do as companies? The little bit that we can do, we should just support our future generation in Nigeria. So that's what I put there, that some charities have risen to the task of distributing ICT devices to students of all ages to aid the education, especially during the COVID pandemic when they were not able to go to school. And having those devices obviously enabled them to continue with their learning. Otherwise, they would have completely been at a disadvantage and missed out of their learning. Now, I've just put a map here, just like for where the country and some of our cities, and just to talk a bit about what the Nigerian government is doing. So to cut them some slack, I think they've awoken to the fact that yes, technology is so key and they need to start doing something about it for the purpose of education in Nigeria. So the government of any country is responsible for identifying the overall goal of education. And of course, the government gives directives of the plan. So the government of Nigeria recognizes ICT as the enabler for developing other critical sectors, including education, healthcare, agriculture, and manufacturing, amongst others. Obviously, the list goes on. And in its drive to diversify the economy from oil and gas, the government of Nigeria is now actively encouraging partnerships between local ICT companies and foreign investors. And Jerry alluded to that earlier. So I'm really glad to see that things are beginning to pick up. It's still in its inception. There's still a long way to go, but at least we've started to do it. So that is something worth celebrating. And to promote these partnerships and to grow an entrepreneurial ecosystem in the technology sector, the government of Nigeria supported creating government or private sector-led incubator hubs, the youth innovation programs, and science technology parks, right? Even for NBBF, that is one of the things, under the leadership of Pastor Andrew and Mr. Bode, right here is the chairperson of the NBBF IT sector. We're looking at, setting up the science technology parks to see how we can make a difference in our own way. So today, many schools in Nigeria are faced with the developmental challenges of the use of information of ICT in terms of e-teaching, e-learning processes. So apparently in 2007, the Federal Ministry of Education created its ICT department and has since been collaborating with several government agencies and other stakeholders in the primary sector to initiate ICT-driven projects and programs to affect all levels of education sector in Nigeria. And that is something I got by Osako in 2012. Okay, so I'm just going to run through quickly through the benefits of IT. So what are the main things that we gain from imbibing?
Hello, Abiola. Sorry, you overrun your time. So please just.
Okay, so I'll finish it up now.
1 minute. Thank you.
Okay, so I can't run through, but I hope you can see my slides, all the things we can do, access to information, anytime learning, collaborative learning, multimedia approach, authentic, up-to-date information, online library systems learning, and I put here children with disabilities, we shouldn't forget them. Technology can reach them wherever they may be. Okay, the other thing is obviously it's woven. I say incorporating information and communication technology into the fabric of education in Nigeria is an effective way to improve the population's life and well-being. The access to diverse IT tools and learning devices gives the students competitive advantage. It enables them to play on a global stage as they will be able to match students from developed countries during interviews or global events. Technology-focused activities mostly require critical thinking and problem-solving skills, an advanced approach in teaching, which improves the learning system that provides veritable learning experiences for students. And the role of information technology in education is to give the best education in the world. And that is the end of my slide. Thank you so much for listening. It's such a vast topic. It was very difficult for me to know what to put in, what to exclude, because it's the bedrock of our society. Technology and education, wow, those are big topics. So to do it justice in 20 minutes is just impossible. So I hope I did enough for people to glean from that. And what I would leave with every single person is, please do not leave it to the government. Whatever way you can contribute. Even, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Support charities like Bright Futures for African Children. Pastor Agu and Pastor Shaya Biruku, they're running. Support charities like IA Foundation. Mrs. Adoronke Ibironke runs that. Find other charities, do something, sponsor a child. If you have old mobile phones that you don't use at home, give it to them to give to these children. Even if it's just an old 40 phone, that means nothing to you. In Nigeria, they can, do it nicely, give it to a child, they can start to learn. Buy a child data so they can have access to these online resources. Let's do something to get the Nigerian youth out of the crisis they're in now. Thank you so much. Apologies, I overran.
Thank you so much, Abiola, for that insightful topic on education. I mean, without a doubt, education is very important, especially with our youths, without a doubt. And education doesn't always have to be formal. You can have formal and informal. A lot of us in the diaspora, we have so much knowledge, but the truth of the matter is, what are we even doing with that? So there are different ways in which we can support people back in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. We can pass our knowledge to them, we can support them, support the charities, and there's so many things that we can do. Actually, we should be thinking of replicating ourselves, transferring our skills and knowledge to the next generation. And it doesn't have to be people immediately within our circles. So that's why anything to do with education, I think, is very important. And if these youths are well educated, some of the problems that we have in Nigeria would be, and a lot of it will disappear. However, I've got a question for you, right?
I was expecting it, Pode.
So, I mean, there is a great opportunity, especially with technology. Now that with COVID, a lot of things can be done remotely. Absolutely. But here's the challenge in Nigeria, and I don't know whether you've got answers to it. Oftentimes, you want to do this thing remotely, right? But in places like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, there is not a problem. And that's one of the questions I threw back at Teju Ajani earlier on.
Yeah.
How do you solve a problem where people are even struggling with electricity? They can't even connect to the internet. How do you solve? And we know that technology and electricity, they kind of go hand in hand. What's your take on that? How do we solve that problem?
Okay. So there are two things I'm going to address, Megan. Thank you so much for the question, and you're doing an amazing job of moderating for us today, by the way. Thank you. So the first thing I would address is the issue of electricity. It saddens me that, I haven't lived in Nigeria for almost 35 years, and we still have the issue of electricity, and we had it when I was growing up. So, obviously that is a pandemic, and it's there. We have to look outside, just like Jerry said, we have to look for solutions. One of the key solutions that I've come to embrace, I've come to really appreciate, and I marvel at the fact that we're not really totally embracing, is solar energy. We have the sun. This is Africa. So our problem with electricity can be solved. So let's say the rural area, right, which is your question. Do we have a collection, just a group of people that can put a small solar panel in a little village? So we have it, even if it's just one small solar panel. And then we have even like one house where we can put these children. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So my point is, we can go down to that level of granularity, where we have a solar panel that is providing electricity. We provide mobile devices. We cater for the data, right? So we take it on as a project. And that way, we bypass the issue with NEPA or whatever electricity companies are operating. We don't need to worry about them. We don't even need generators, quite frankly. And this way, we know that the children in that area, they can go to these schools, even if it's we just put up a tent and just, you know, make it comfortable so the sun doesn't batter them. And they go there every single day. It's being solar, the electricity is being provided through solar panels or solar energy. And we know that this group of children, we're doing something for them. Fantastic. That would be my answer. Fantastic. So we have to look for solutions. We can't depend on all these companies to do it. Let us do something and help these children.
Fantastic response. I wasn't actually expecting that. What I was expecting was, well, you know, there's a problem with electricity that's been going on for years. But you're right, actually, if everyone was serious about this and you can solve that problem with solar panels in a rural area with technology, I think there's a lot of opportunities right there. Even the opportunities for people that are not in the technology space to provide that service, solar, portable solar systems for those in the rural areas. Thanks a lot. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free. You can raise your hands up, or there'll be opportunities for questions afterwards. So, but in the interest of time, let's move on to the next speaker. This is also quite an interesting topic. So the next speaker is Engineer Ade Okuboyejo. Is the CEO of Integrase Security Solutions. So the topic is going to be discussing, will be creating a national cybersecurity policy designed to protect key critical infrastructure in the country. Mr. Engineer Ade Okuboyejo is an experienced IT expert with over 20 years of professional experience, initially within the electronic payment industry and most recently focused on cyber security. Armed with degrees in chemical engineering and computer science, he has worked with various multinational companies worldwide on various IT-related projects. An avid skydiving enthusiast, is married with 2 children and currently resides in West Midlands of the UK. This is a topic that is of interest to everyone. Cybersecurity, anything to do with security, I think is really, it's an important topic now. Now that everyone is moving online, or everything is now moving online, we now see that this topic is actually more important than ever before. So please help me welcome Engineer Ade Okuboyejo to discuss this topic. Thank you, Mr. Ade.
Right, thank you, Bode, for that introduction and for a job well done. I want to thank the previous speakers, Tedro Ajani, Jerry Ejikeme, Abiola Obileye, and I'm looking forward to Gina's talk as well, because she's also addressing electronic policy.
Mr. Ade, just because of the time factor, please, we're going to be very strict with the time. So if you can just try and condense your presentation to between 10 to 15 minutes, that would be great. If you can do it in 10 minutes, that would be
okay. Yeah, I'll try and speed it up. I don't have too many slides anyway.
Okay, that's great.
So let me share my screen. Can everyone see it?
Yes, we can, yes.
You can see it, okay then. So I'll start, I'm going to address 6 main topics here. I'll give you just a brief overview. I'm sure you've all heard of cybersecurity, as Bode has mentioned. So just give you a brief overview, and then try and give you a view of the national threat landscape as relates to Nigeria. I'll give a brief list of types of attacks that are out there. It's growing every day, it's changing, but yes, it's something we need to keep abreast of. And then the cost of cybersecurity breaches, you know, what impact does it have on the economy? I'll then focus on the stakeholders. You know, if you're trying to formulate a policy, who needs to be at the table trying to decide what kind of policy and strategy you want to adopt. And then I'll give you the main advantages or the focus of the policy itself. Okay, with cybersecurity, what is cybersecurity? It's a body of technology, processes, practices. This could be like firewalls. This could be processes that are mandated within companies, and it's all geared towards protecting networks, protecting computers, protecting applications, and of course, data in transit and data at rest as well. We've all had interactions with the banks where we are having to access our accounts. And most recently, they are all advocating for multi-factor authentication. So that's because of trying to protect unauthorized access to their services. So that's what cybersecurity is geared towards protecting. Now, what are the goals of cybersecurity? With you're trying to reduce the risk of cyber attacks, and you're also trying to put in place security controls to mitigate against any threats that could be out there. So if you have an infrastructure, you identify what devices or components are within your infrastructure, and then you try to protect what these devices that you do identify. You could protect them by having firewalls, by having antivirus, or just by creating awareness, internally, and putting a monitoring system in place so that if you do detect any breaches, you are able to respond and then recover from whatever issues that could have arisen. Now, the CIA Triad is often banded around within the cybersecurity space. It's protecting the confidentiality of information. So all the information you're sending across your network, you want it to go to whoever is intended to. The integrity of the data, you don't want your data to be modified, and then the availability of your system. So you always want your system to be up and running and available for your users. So all these are the goals for cybersecurity goals. Now, what's the threat landscape like? This is universal across the world now. No one is exempted from being vulnerable to threats. And why do these threats occur? The reason they occur is because of the digital transformation. We've spoken about that with the other speakers, with the digitalization, increase in technology adoption. Everyone has a mobile phone. We're all using mobile devices. And then the impunity with which people get away with things, without being punished. So, and then the actors that I've identified in the threat landscape are state actors. So you have, countries that have been mentioned, by the West, conducting cybersecurity attacks on their infrastructure. You have, in the case of Nigeria, people who are termed the Yahoo boys. And then you have organized crime as well. So it's not just drug trafficking that's organized. You have cybersecurity crime that's in that range as well. And then you have the hackers, those who do it for fun, or those who do it, who conduct cybercrime so as to gain for monetary gain. Now, what do these cyber criminals target? They target the infrastructure of the company. They target the data, not just the company of the country. And in the case of nations, they target the defense infrastructure of the country. What the most common types of cyber attacks? Well, I've just listed 6. There are quite much more, but these are the most common ones. So you have the malware. where virus is introduced into the system, and people do, locks up the system, and they do demand ransom in order to unlock your system. You have the phishing attacks. This is when people, send emails with links, and this could be, could cause damages if these are opened and release worms or viruses into the system. Password attacks. We have all been told now to use different kind of passwords to make it more difficult for people to guess. And then the denial of service attacks, where a system is put out of function. So all this are different types of attacks that are out there. If you look at the left, I've just put a few pictures there. It tells you the most recent and popular attacks that's occurred in the world. There was the Israel, where there was a cyber attack on their water system. Sony, where they were attacked by, I believe it was North Korea. There was Target in the USA, where information was removed from their system, credit card information. And you had the Stuxnet attack on Iran, which is a state-sponsored attack. And of course, there's the Hush Puppy, as you can see there. They are involved in business email compromise. So that's also another type of attack. Now, what's the cost globally to these attacks? For these attacks on the infrastructure? 61%, more than 6 in 10 companies suffer this kind of attacks. There's a 64% increase in email threats this year alone. 79% of organizations were hurt because they were not prepared. And that's why putting a policy in place prepares not only the companies, but also governments to be able to deal with this kind of attacks. Now, 1% of global GDP, totaling $1 trillion, has been lost to cybercrime in 2021. And this is bound to increase in the coming years. Now, when you're formulating cybersecurity policy, it involves the government and then stakeholders. Stakeholders are people in the industry. They are the ones who are driving the economy mostly, but they also need to be involved in formulating a policy that will protect their infrastructure. As you can see below there's the organization in Nigeria called the Counter-Terrorism Center. It's part of the Office for National Security Advice, and they are involved in formulating the cybersecurity policy in Nigeria. However, I believe a lot of stakeholders are not involved in formulating this policy, and this needs to happen. As it does in Europe, where you have the NISA, the National Cybersecurity Center in the UK, and then this Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency in the US. These are all similar bodies or equivalent bodies outside Nigeria, but they involve the private sector in formulating a policy. Move on to the next slide. Right, this is landscape for cybersecurity in Nigeria. The 7 major threats that have been identified in Nigeria: cyber terrorism, online child abuse, cybercrime, electronic interference, pandemic-induced cyber threats, online gender exploitation. And of course, COVID-19 has had a major impact in fueling the growth of cybercrime in the country. Now, the cybersecurity policy that's been formulated so far within Nigeria has been geared towards strengthening cybersecurity governance, coordination, fostering protection of critical national infrastructure, enhancing cybersecurity incident management, strengthening the legal and regulatory framework, enhancing cyber defense capability, and promoting a thriving digital economy. All these are buzzwords that's been put on the website of the OSNA, NSA. But what I found out is it's not been done with cooperation of the other stakeholders, and this needs to be further promoted within the government. As Abiola mentioned, I also like to see pictures of young, youthful Nigerians doing positive things and making good initiatives. This is a cybersecurity initiative, and what they do, they are ethical hackers. They organize events where they all come together and share their skills and try to hack into systems, thereby making themselves available for employment by government agencies and the private sector. It identifies the next generation of professionals, and it provides an enabling platform, and just makes them, the local content development that Ted just spoke about. It actually promotes getting up for this kind of initiative. So I'm quite impressed with that. So what are the recommendations that I've come up with? More involvement of stakeholders in further enhancing the current policy that's in place, providing more awareness and training, not just within companies, but also within government institutions, penalties for breaches by companies. That I haven't seen that at all. A lot of security breaches that occurs in Nigeria are actually absorbed by the organizations or the banks without informing anyone. So they just absorb the loss and move on with their businesses. But if there are penalties by the government put in place, then this will make these companies ready for make their infrastructure protected against cybersecurity breaches and make it much more safer for the customers that do use their services. Prosecution and jail for cyber criminals, that's also important. I mentioned impunity earlier, but if you do have strict prosecution for cyber criminals, this will also dissuade a lot of people who are moving in that direction. That's the end of my slides.
Wow. Thank you so much, Engineer Ade Oku-Boyejo. Thank you, because that topic itself is actually, it's a very important one. And it's one where a lot of businesses, they find it very difficult to move online. I play in the cloud space. So I've been doing a lot of migrating some companies into the cloud. And one of the questions that comes up every time is, what if someone takes their data, they don't feel secured online, that sort of thing. And then I try to say, well, those things are, there's something to be worried about, but really, if you decide you don't want to move into the cloud, you'll be doing yourself, you'll be disadvantaged in the long run. However, I've got a question for you, because the thing is, we know that cybersecurity is very important, right? Without a doubt. Now, as a people, business, and government, as we all now begin to move into the cloud or operate online, in fact, with COVID, some people actually don't want to operate online, but they're forced to operate online. Now, with Nigeria, right, there's a lot of insecurities in Nigeria, physical securities, kidnapping, armed robbery, theft, and things like that. How can we use digital or cyber security so that it aligns properly with physical security, so we can eradicate some of the securities we have in the country? Like, as an example, speed of access to forensic. Someone has done something, even before they get to the other side, with our intelligence, we can track that person. How can we align it? Because I think we need a combination of both, especially in a country like Nigeria.
Definitely. Well, as you mentioned, privacy issue is always a concern for people. Being able to, provide their information and make it available easily. But we have to have like a database collected by the government, which has enough information about individuals that would make it easy to identify or to cross-check. Take, for instance, the driver's license that we have. With your driver's license number, the law enforcement are able to get your address, your date of birth, or other kind of information about individuals. But the concern is that information safe with the government? So these are what we've stressed in the policy that's been adopted, that whatever data has been collected from the people, like the BVN, whatever NIMC is collecting about individuals, it needs to be protected, it needs to be encrypted. That the assurance has to be there that this information is safe. But the government does need to collect this data and be able to cross-reference with the security agencies in the case of issues of kidnapping.
Okay, thank you so much, Engineer D. Before we call upon the last speaker, Engineer Gina Ayola, do you remember one of the first things that I said? I said this webinar, it's an opportunity to learn, and I believe that we've all gained one or two things. I've learned from the various speakers that have spoken, and it's also an opportunity to connect, right? So I would encourage you, I'm giving you some time to get, I know it's 12 o'clock on Saturday morning, to freshen up. When I'm doing the closing remarks, I would encourage you to put on your videos so we can connect with you. Remember, we live in a digital and physically connected world. It's important that we are connecting. And oftentimes, the powers of these connections cannot be underestimated. I tell you what, there's some people that I've met digitally. When I see them physically, I know that it's them. So as an example, I see Charles. Who is Charles? I don't know. So if you don't want to turn on your video, at least put an image up. But it'll be good if you can turn on your video. Let's start connecting. Let's use the power of technology to connect. And these things, we can't take these things for granted anymore. You see, we can do business on the other side of the world, but we don't want to be doing businesses with people we don't know. So I encourage you to put your videos on, stay connected, stay engaged, and you will get the best out of these sessions. There are two things we're going to have to get from the session. You learn or you connect, or you do both, right? Okay. So thank you. For those that have turned their videos on, we can now put a face to the name or name to the face. I can see CJ George, I see Wale Shogosoya, I see Kende. So without further ado, let's move on to the next topic. And this is the final topic, Engineer Gina Ayola. So let me, Engineer Gina Ayola. Okay, so this is another person that is playing in a male-dominated area. I'm not a male chauvinist, but I appreciate it when I see women playing in a male-dominated area. Oftentimes you see women and the first thing is either fashion or they're doing beauty stuff or pharmacies or something. But, this is an engineer, So an engineer means that person must be good with maths, physics, or whatever, is required to become an engineer. So I really applaud women that play in this space. So Engineer Gina Ayola is the CEO of Wave Palm Technology Solutions. She's going to be talking to us today on developing a nationwide electronic technology strategy policy. She's an engineer with specialization in electronics, medical electronics, microwave communications, and software engineering. 24 years of working as an engineer in various sectors that includes Sony Electronics, Hewlett Packard, BBC, Tails Security, Sky, Liberty Global, Philips Electronics, Vodafone, and she's been running her business again for 5 years. So she's not just a professional, she's also an entrepreneur running a business in a tough terrain like Nigeria and Ghana, right? And at the same time, UK. Please help me welcome Gina Ayola to present. So I would be sharing Gina's slide. So 1 second.
So thank you so much, Sam, for that intro. I'm not sure I say so much to myself about like the engineer. I tend to go by Georgina Ayola, but I'll take it. I'll take that compliment. So as Sam has said, I'm an engineer specialization in electronics and software engineering. And I have been working in this field for the past 24 years as a consultant, and also as running my own company. So we have like Wavelength Consultancy Solutions that has been running for over 10 years, and WavePalm Technology Solutions in Africa, mainly Nigeria and Kenya, and some collaborations in Ghana. Strategically and effectively for the past 5 years. We actually have our office in Ibadan, in Nigeria, and we are very much into the tech sphere. I'd like to say a big thank you to and congratulations to my fellow panelists who have delivered amazing topics and insight into the technology phase. My fellow friend and colleague, Abiola Obileye, and my classmate and friend, Tejo Ajani, who I'm actually very, very proud of as well. So thank you. And also to Ade and my other panelists that spoke very well about digitalization. So before further ado, I'd just like to get into the thing. So my topic for today is fundamental tech strategy policy and making it work for all and sundry. The next slide, please. So for, intro, for policymakers in developing countries, the COVID-19 pandemic obviously has really presented an opportunity to accelerate digitalization. Digitalization, electronics, compliance, and so on and so forth. Public investment and policy changes are needed to drive the development of a robust technology ecosystem that is attractive to investors, that is supportive of local entrepreneurs, and that delivers for the citizens. Effective government matters, and leaders must understand and learn from the experience of leveraging technology during COVID-19. So I say this, I will use today as an example. COVID-19 has really done amazing things. In my own words, I mean, it's a real blessing in disguise. Even in the UK, you would have never thought that people would be working from home, throughout, for even in like the technology sphere. You would never have thought of it. Nigeria or developing countries have quickly adapted, even in the strict and in the difficult situations that they find themselves in. They have really adapted so well to the technology. They have been doing like remote learning, even though the infrastructure is a challenge, which we do know. There's so much to be done in that, and I'll talk about that as we go along. They've adapted very well, and I think a round of applause to them, really. I mean, considering the challenges that we have to go through in terms of electricity, lack of electricity, lack of internet data, and all that, and the disparity between the rich and the poor, the urban and the rural areas. So I mean, I think it's something to be proud of, although there's so much to be done. And I'm so glad that Teju actually picked up on that, and also with Abiola talking about education, which I'll just touch up again, touch up on as I go along. Next slide, please. So infrastructure. Infrastructure is, as we know, is very, very important. I always go by the saying that, not to reinvent the wheel. We know that there are parts of the country that have gone through what we are currently going through, and they've been able to come out, victoriously. China is one place that has gone through a very difficult revolution, and they've come out well. Obviously, having like the right governance and policy to be able to, and every part of the world is actually looking onto China. You might not like them for so many reasons, but people are trying to like copy them, and they are like a platform that we use. I tell people say, oh, I don't like China products, but let me tell you one thing. Everything that you have, even in all the big companies, and don't want to call names, and I can tell you that because I consult for big organizations, the telecommunication, and I deal with the stakeholders, and most of them, all of them actually, that are writing the firmware up to the device, up to the chipsets are based in China. And we follow, they bring their regulations. The only difference between Nigeria and this westernized countries is because they follow compliance. There is compliance that are put into place. When there is a CR change, that means a change request for a particular change in a product, it has to go through compliance, and they have to be approved by the appropriate body within the organizations that they are dealing with. And I give an example, like say we look at, say, in fact, I'll look at a British company. Let's say Sky, for example. It's not British, it's American now. Let's say Sky, your Sky Q box, right? Every device that is on that box is actually built in China. But before they can be approved in the UK, they have to go through regulation. They have to go through a compliance stage, and they have to be approved. Not only do they have like a list of all, up to like the LED display, up to the about the buttons, how the buttons are designed and what angle they're placed in, they have to go through approval, and the approval will be done within the organization. And they must not compromise, because your name has to be on it. I am in charge of some of those things in some organizations here in the UK. I cannot mention names at the moment. And, that has to be, like, for example, like today now, I'm totally prepared for this meeting and for this presentation, but we had a crisis with Wi-Fi connectivity for over 1 billion customers. And I had to quickly approve for firmware to be upgraded on all the devices, all the hubs in your homes, right? So that is something that is, I mean, I didn't have to kind of like leave my house. I did it remotely, right? I did it remotely, ensuring that the firmware is the right firmware, ensuring that, it's going to work appropriately, and now deploying it to all the devices across the UK. Now, that's a revolution, right? That is something that we would never, ever have thought about, many years, even like 3 years ago, when never ever thought about that. You would tell someone that you do something remotely, they'll say, no, as a techie, you have to be on ground. And that's exactly how it is. You have to be on ground. But I was staying in my house and ensuring that every home had an upgrade without even affecting the customer experience. So understanding that, you know, the tech revolution is enabling step change in access to market, delivery of healthcare, even healthcare advances in food production, which my fellow panelists actually touched upon, provision of education, which Abiola also touched upon. You know, the unimaginary that you couldn't have thought about that 5 years ago, that we could do all of this remotely and online, you know. So, you know, it's very important to understand that for Nigeria or for developing countries, for this to actually be effective, we have to understand that even the minimum infrastructure has to be in place, like electricity. And I'm glad that Abiola talked about you know, solar panel. You know, you have to have data. Wi-Fi infrastructure in Nigeria is a disgrace. You know, for what we can do on other things, a disgrace. You know, we are dealing in what I am AI technology. Why are we not talking about the things that really matter? That is like our food, you know, for communication between you know, just one person to the next. We are going to be deploying, our companies deploying a telemedicine platform this month. And, you know, we're dealing with the urban and the rural area. And the challenges that everybody face, we've already got like over about 100 doctors onboarded onto the platform. The challenges that everybody is talking about is data, is connectivity, you know, and we've had to now set up like some areas, especially in the rural areas, like food soldiers, that will be able to enable such communication, because it's actually, you know, like a virtual platform that allows a doctor and a patient to actually meet and consult. So like I said, fast connectivity and greater access to things like smartphone handsets. I see a lot of people still in the rural areas, still Nigerians, using like your GSM, like the phone that we did. I don't know if you remember, Motorola, they're still using that kind of device. We've moved past that. I'm sure that the government can put some money into rolling out, you know, smartphones, even the minimal smartphone, to allow people to be able to have access to, you know, up to date technology, like, you know, like mobile apps and all of it. We know that most people in Nigeria has a mobile phone. So we can leverage on that, use the smartphone to be able to reach the people. So the next slide is identity for all, the critical infrastructure. I call it the critical infrastructure because it's kind of like
Hello, Gina, we can't hear you anymore. I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. So I said I call it digital for all because and critical infrastructure because it's, you know, universal internet access is an urgent development priority over the next decade. It's just not a case of when or how. We have to get to it and we have to do something about it to be able to you know, compete in the way we want to compete in the world. We have to have the internet access infrastructure has to be sorted out. It has to work, you know. So we have to put our money where our mouth is. A lot of people have the facilities, they have the resource to be able to get this working, we need to collaborate. We need to do something about this. Identity for all in the digital age. As more services and transactions are digitized, we need to be on the internet. We need to have data. We have to have access to the cloud, data management. It's very, very important. I know that there's so many things that are being done right now. We are working with some operators in Nigeria. We're, doing a lot of AI stuff for them, and where we're doing like facial recognition and all of that stuff that we're deploying onto their platform. So people are going to have access to that. I talked about the healthcare, social support, and all the likes. I'm probably not going to have to be able to go through all my slides because of time. But building the skills to engage in the digital economy, that's my next slide. And this comes about the policy environment. It's very important that in order for digital technology equalize opportunity, the skills to engage online, from basic digital literacy to the tools to be competitive in a digital workforce, and the skills to consider the ethics and interplay between technology and society must be built across population. For governments and communities, this represents a significant challenge and a critical opportunity to understand the skills needed to engage in and benefit from the digital marketplace, and how to grow this across ages and geographies. I think I've touched upon this. Literacy, Abiola touched about, so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to repeat what she has said. She's talked brilliantly on this about education. For me, it has to come from the basic. You find even teachers that are teaching like ICT. They themselves, they don't even know how to write macros in Excel. So how do you go about really teaching ICT? I mean, sometimes I feel like we've kind of like bastardized the word ICT. Mind my language, but that's just the way I can put it. But, we need to kind of like look at how we are going to kind of like just re-educate these teachers, re-educate the workforce, re-educate your admin staff even, re-educate that person on the, in the computer center on how to be able to just use basic tools. How do we, I get people saying, oh, let's start making phones. We were making tablet PCs and mobile phones, and we distributed them during the COVID, when the COVID first of all broke loose. But people said, oh, can you do more of this? But we can't, because the infrastructure in Nigeria is not there for us to be able to do this, And so it's not just about jumping into the deep end. We need to get some certain things in place. And I think that's one of our problems. We just jump right into the deep end without having to tackle the things that are really, really matter, which is like the infrastructure. Next slide, please.
The slides are very...
Okay, so digital governance that keeps pace with change. Can you go back to the next? Digital governance that keeps pace with change. So digital governance that keeps pace with change, promoting innovation and keeping people safe. Policymakers are being challenged to evolve their regulatory infrastructure in ways that keep pace with digitalization, governing an ever-evolving space that promotes innovation and opportunity while keeping citizens safe and protecting their rights. Governments need to legislate to ensure the benefits of digitalization accrue to all while mitigating the risk. This has been spoken about, so I'm not going to say so much about this, but this area, in everything that you're building, you have to incorporate this into it. the telemedicine platform that we're building, we've had a lot of seminars, and the way we even educated the doctors on how to use the platform. We brought in lawyers that spoke about the policy, the digital governance, and the policies that surround that. I mean, you build some applications. Those applications might not be suited for that environment. And you have to understand what that environment is bringing, what that environment has, before you start building the application. Because what will happen is that you build that software and you have to re-engineer that software, which would take time and money, because you need to adapt it to the regulatory body. There has to be policymakers, regulatory infrastructure that has to be set aside for digital technology, for electronics. Electronics is basically digital, and that's why I didn't use the word digital electronics really. But in the technology space, you have to have the policymakers that have to govern that area, and it has to be a body. And I don't think that we have something that is functioning right now in Nigeria. That has to be done.
Thanks.
Next slide, please.
Engineer Ayola, we just have to call it a day now because we've overrun. Apologies. So if you just give us a summary, just a concluding remark, so that we can end it. Yeah.
Okay. A bit unfair, but it's okay.
Sorry.
Because we had I still have quite a bit more to talk about, but I'll take it as it is. So I'll just in a summary, recognizing that no country on earth has all the fundamentals fully in place, we look at some of the approaches. Being taken to promote inclusive technology, transformation in an imperfect world, building tech policies in a way that leaves no one behind, connect those in rural and low infrastructure areas, right? Take account of very digital literacy and device access, and consider the needs of marginalized group is critical. There are technology and governance dimensions to this challenge, and a clear need for a greater role for users, all users, as I say, in the design and development of technology and related policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Thank you very much for your time. Sorry I had to cut you because we were running really out of time. This is a topic that is inexhaustible. I mean, I'm sure everyone on this forum would agree that we could start talking about technology. We can talk for forever. So we're kind of getting to the final round of this. I've got one question for you before we move on to the closing section. Quick question. Obviously, there is a technology divide. We know that there is technology divide in the rural and urban areas between continents and countries. However, what's even more obvious is the technology divide between the gender technology divide between men and women, girls and boys, as they're starting out. The chances are a lot more boys will lean towards technology and a lot more female will lean towards the social sciences. Being a woman playing in this space, what strategies or what ideas do you have to encourage to neutralize that balance so that more women can begin to play in the space that you're playing in? Okay, thank you for that. Like that I've been operating in Nigeria, and I've been I also am an employer of labor, and I tend to actually employ. We have a program where we call it the boot camp, where we get like university graduates or some of them undergraduates that are coming in for internship, and we absorb them into the company for a year. What I've found really more is that we found more of guys, obviously they are more techie, but we found some of the girls, they come in and they just move straight into the graphics area.
I try to kind of like sway them back into like having like a wholesome environment of where they are able to embrace the whole sphere of technology. My advice, and for what I did, and the reason why I did it and why I'm here to talk about this, is I did engineering. When I chose engineering, I did electronics. I chose electronics. I first of all did electrical electronics, and I looked at the whole thing and I thought electronics is vast. In anything that you do, there will be electronics. You will have an element of it. In software, software stems up from electronics. So getting them to be able to start from that background and creating an environment that allows them to learn and do practical lessons, not just the theoretical part, is very vital. I find that in some of the universities, which we also collaborate with, some of them, they don't even have like the practical know-how. When they come to us, we start from the grassroots. They don't even know how to design a transistor. Like the first thing that you do is in electronics is to be able to design an op-amp, op-amp. They don't know how to do that at all. So, I mean, that's like even like a circuit. They do not understand that. They don't know how to design a circuit. So for me, there has to be a lot of practical training that goes into that and embraces the ladies. You know, I'm not one that is about, oh, the girls has to do this. I think there has to be that, because when you're concentrating more on the girls, then you leave out the guys, right?
Yeah.
And I've had that topic come up a lot of times. So like, you know, the girls has to be willing to be able to do, and the only way they can be willing is to also have to start curriculums that actually emphasizes more on practical lessons as well as the theoretical lessons.
Okay. Thank you so much, Engineer Ayola. So we're coming to the final round of this. Guys, if you can turn on your cameras, let's connect with you, both physically and digitally. It'll be nice to put a face to the name. Thanks for your time today. It's been truly an amazing and educative session. We live in an interesting time, and it's time to embrace the change for good. This is what we do here at NBBF. So let me run through NBBF as a whole. So NBBF is one of the seven countries under the Nigerian Global Business Forum, okay, which falls under the overall leadership of Prince Folabi Anjin, right? So you got NBBF in all these various locations, doing great and mighty things, connecting, and with the whole aim of actually impacting Nigeria. You see, one of the things that we have going for us is that we have Nigerians all over the world. The diasporans, the Nigerian diaspora community all over the world is actually quite sizable. And if we begin to work together, not as an individual, but collectively together, we can do a lot more to build our nation. And it's about time we start to think of that country as our country, even though we find it easier to, even though we think we're comfortable abroad, but the truth of the matter is we're still Nigerians. And I believe that when Nigeria becomes really good, and it would become good, even for those of us living abroad, there would be an advantage as well, both ways for us. So that's, and in the same vein, I would like to thank all the chairpersons of the Nigerian British Business Forum. Professor Rotimi Jaisemi, the chairperson of NBBF Health Sector. Mr. Lanris Kadiri is the chairperson of the NBBF Finance Sector. Ms. Ronke Adiagbo, chairperson NBBF Educational Sector. Mr. Ade Akeju, chairperson NBBF Housing Sector. Mr. Keye Oduneye, chairpersons NBBF Communications and Projects. Prince Pamela Ogusi, Nigerian Irish Business Forum, and Engineer Yemi Ogundele. So that's it in a nutshell, all our chairpersons doing great things in various sectors. So as we're about to round up, I would like to show you our vision board for year 2020. We've got a major global event called the Global Nigerian Technology Exhibition Conference. The date is 29th and 30th of September 2020, showcasing Nigeria at the highest level. And so one of the things that we're doing with the Nigerian High Commission, with the federal government, is to create all these areas, as you see in this, in this diagram, the e-business clinic that would empower businesses both in the UK and Nigeria, a project board where we're training people, employers can log into that project board, people can be trained, and we're sure that any student or anyone on that project board or that job board has the skills. We also intend to work alongside the government, local government, creating national IT buffer zones with state governments. And I think Ms. Tejo Ajani actually did say that one of the best ways to reach the rural communities is maybe through some of these buffer zones, training centers, transferring skills. But what's even more important than anything else is knowledge transfer. Because if you look at it, one of the things I said that this country, the United Kingdom that we're in, a lot of Nigerians have actually contributed to building the infrastructure of this country, right? Be it a tester, be it a business analyst, solutions architect, project manager. I can tell you that if you go to any company in this country, a large multinational company, there will be at least 2 or 3 Nigerians there doing stuff, building stuff. So we've got a lot of knowledge, but what we're not doing is transferring those skills back to our country. It's about time we also start becoming selfish and think of how can we transfer that knowledge back. So one of the things that we're doing is global mentoring, where we're going to pair a top person in the UK with someone in Nigeria so that they can begin to do a bit of knowledge transfer. So one is training, which is good, but the other thing is mentorship, where you're actually mentoring someone that you do not know. You see, the best thing we can leave in this world is transferring our knowledge to someone else. So it's called succession planning. If you can't transfer your knowledge to someone else, what's the point of being in this world anyway? So with all the skills and expertise that we've acquired over the years in this country, and we've built this country, right? It's about time we start to transfer that. So we're going to have something called the mentoring, global mentoring thing. And then more importantly, Nigeria has a bad name, without a doubt, we know that. We want to create a technology brand directory, so that if you're doing business in Nigeria, you check that directory. If that company exists on that directory, they are people that you want to do business with. So, and then of course, the global events. The global events will showcase Nigeria in a positive light, and some of these things will begin to, all the dots will eventually connect. So let me end this with a quote from Confucius. More than 450 years before the birth of Christ, Confucius said, "What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. Let's do it together. We've heard what we have to do. We've seen what we need to do. Now it's time to do it. And together we can do it." So I encourage all of you, if you're still playing the solo game, it's time we begin to work together. The NBBF group is open. A number of you guys I do know, you can reach out to me individually or personally, and there is a lot to do, and it's not for one person. And you can see what I've got on the screen there is not for one person. It's not even for an organization. It's a collective thing. People have to start thinking in a particular direction to be able to achieve some of these things. Even though I've got it, I have it as a diagram, but that diagram is interconnected with so many things, as you well know. So thanks very much for your time. We appreciate you. And we look forward to other webinars and seminars in the future. Like I said, this forum is open to all. We encourage you to join. If there's any ideas on the IT space, any webinar topic, anything you want us to discuss going forward, any strategic positioning, please share it with us. It's about nation building, or we need to build our country, regardless of whether we think we're comfortable in the UK or anywhere else we're living. thank you for your time today. And I say goodbye and have a great day, great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Amazing immediate chairperson of NBBF. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Thank you. This is Biolo Belaya. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone that wants to share anything.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy your Saturday.
All right.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. CG George. I see you. Dresda Cloud Benson, I see you. Well done. Thank you. Ronke Adiabo, I see you. Thank you.
You managed to convince me to put my camera on.
Oh, it's good. Now we see what I know what you look like. It's a good thing. It's always good to connect with others, even digitally. So thank you.
Yeah. Biola, well done. That was really good.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. I can always count on your support. Thank you, Ronke.
Welcome.
Together we'll make a difference.
Absolutely.
One at a time.
We haven't got a choice. We haven't got a choice. We've got to. It's our country. We have no other country.
Yeah. Our youth will not be undermined. There will be big players on a global scale.
Amen.
A very, very good session, and yeah, it was very informative. Good to learn from all the speakers. You know, thanks for everyone that contributed. It was very, very insightful and knowledgeable. Well, provided a lot of knowledge. Well done, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Very encouraging. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's it. It's 1 o'clock on the dot. We have a great week ahead, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Mr. Chair.
How are you, sir?
Sambod, well done.